inner dialogue is super important. Yeah. So often people are in that state of, disapproving of themselves or judging themselves. Yeah. We often think, oh, the others are thinking about us in a bad way, but usually we're our biggest critic. Right?
Hi, everyone. Today on the podcast, I have Lawrence Ellyard. He's the founder of the International Institute of Complementary Therapists. He's a best-selling author, speaker, and wellness industry influencer. He's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, and Success magazines, and he's also been endorsed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Sir Richard Branson, Jack Canfield, and Dr. Masaru Emoto for his work. He has over 3 decades of experience as a therapist and educator in the wellness industry. I think you're going to really enjoy today's podcast with him. Lots of nuggets on how to live a great life. Just listen for them. We'll see you on the other side. Hi, Lawrence. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, no problem. You're on the other side of the world.
All the way from Byron Bay, Australia. Yes. So coming.
Well, thank you so much. I'd love for our listeners to understand a little bit about your background and your story. That would be very helpful for them to understand why you're on the PQM podcast. I think that hopefully they're going to learn a lot about mindset and how to really build the type of life they want. What are the type of tools they should develop? So maybe if you could just take us through your kind of story, and that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been involved in this whole wellness industry for about 30 years now, and I have quite a diverse background in meditation, mindfulness, martial arts practice. Also had good fortune just to have some great mentors and teachers in the spiritual space, but also in the wellness space. And the main thing that I'm doing now, so I'm the founder and chairman of the International Institute for Complementary Therapists. So that's a governing body for the whole wellness industry and represents over 1,400 different occupations worldwide. And we're in 37 countries as well. So that's quite a thriving wellness business. And we are interacting every day with different kinds of therapists and healers and people who are providing education in the wellness space. So we get a lot of exposure to the world of wellness and optimal living and whatnot. So, that's really fascinating in its own right, but also I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of interesting esoteric and natural therapies myself. That's sort of my background as well. So that's the kind of overview of what we do. And just really loving to, share with your audience a bit more about the right kinds of mindset that enables people to live more optimally and more mindfully.
So maybe take us through. So you've born and brought up in Australia, and when did you first get involved in wellness? How did you get to this where you are right now?
Yeah, well, really early actually. So, I guess as a child, I was really interested in all things esoteric and other than, what we normally see and experience through our ordinary senses. When I was 11 years old, my sister's partner introduced me to transcendental meditation. So I got involved in meditation really young, and then had a fairly turbulent teenage years, as one does sometimes. And out of that, though, sort of in my late teens.
Oh, so you were very young. You were like, you did TCM while you were a teenager. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then I was starting to down a career of graphic design, art direction. And I did that for a short period of time. And I was really, came to the realization this is not what I want to do. So I decided to leave that profession. And that was an interesting little story because I was going to a spiritualist talk. And when I went to park my car, I was running late. I parked my car out the front of the place, and I had parked my car on the wrong side of the road facing the wrong direction. And I ran into the talk, and I came back out to get something. I got this parking ticket, which was a lot of money at the time. And I was like really frustrated. And it was a type of, question and answer type thing. So I was speaking to the teacher. I said, he seems really frustrated. And I was like, I've just got this parking ticket and I was running late and I was facing the wrong way. And he goes, like your life. And I was like, oh. Yeah. And I sort of got that sort of drop-in moment where I was like, I need to make some sort of radical change. And so
How old were you at that time?
I was about 19 at that time. And I decided that I'm going to go full-time into this spiritual path. And
that's kind of remarkable. What was it about you that he said that to you? It couldn't have just been about, he must have sensed something else about your life. Like, why were you in turmoil at that time? Like, what was special about he would say that to you?
That's the thing. I don't know. He must have intuited it, but he just said, "Oh, like your life," and it just sort of hit me. And it was that moment I thought I've got to make a significant change, and so I left that profession. And yeah, it sort of coincided with me moving into a new place, which happened to be a Buddhist monastery. And so I checked into this monastery for 3 years, and then yeah, it was a very different situation. I was, getting up at 5 a.m. and meditation practices most days and many hours and whatnot. And I also had the opportunity to meet with a couple of really powerful teachers in Buddhism, and started to work really heavily in that area. And I was also studying transpersonal studies, so to do with psychology, counseling, and also energy healing as well, like so Reiki and other esoteric practices. I'm studying under a Qigong master as well.
So many different things.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Me all at once, and I was suddenly surrounded by all these really high caliber teachers. And so that really drove me to focus heavily in that area. And my family thought I was crazy. They're like, "Oh my God, what's he doing? He's stepped out of this ordinary life. He's doing this really unusual things." But yeah, for me, it really spoke to me heavily. And out of that, many years later, formed the professional body that pioneering now. But yeah, it was a really interesting process and great time. And yeah, it was just an exposure to a lot of really wonderful people, really authentic people. So that's what really.
You continued this, basically, it sounds like you went through many different types of alternative therapies and mind meditation, different styles of meditation. So after all that, is there a reason why you were moving between different things? Were you not finding the answer, let's say in Buddhist tradition or TCM or
Yeah,
Qigong?
I had my definitely my core practices, but where I was living at the time was sort of the central hub for all the alternative scene. So I got exposure to a lot of different teachers that were coming through. So there were different Advaita Vedanta teachers that would come and travel and visit living. So it was just a real great opportunity for this amalgamation of different therapies and teachers based on where I was living at the time. So that's just what happened. So I got exposed to a lot of different things. Obviously, in all of that, there were certain teachers that I, was like, okay, this is a real heart bond. This is, a strong experience. And, that's continues to this day, even though some of those teachers have passed on. So yeah, it's a very fortunate time, I think, to get exposed to different teachers and practices. Yeah.
So if somebody was to start at the beginning into their exploration, how would you say that they should go down that journey? Let's say they're not experienced in any of these. How do you think they should attack that issue or figure out what's best for them?
Yeah, I think certainly, giving yourself expression or exploring a whole variety of different things, yeah, and seeing what you gravitate towards or feel a connection with, and listening to different speakers like what some of your audience were probably doing. I guess back in the day when I was doing all this, it was very much a face-to-face. It wasn't a social media experience. You'd go along and you'd listen to a talk, or you'd pick up a book, you'd read it and go, okay, that clicks with me. And but for me, it was very much through direct experience. So I guess people today, then it's really about who are you following on social and podcasts or content on social media, whatever it is, and then seeing which teachers you connect or gel with the best. And I think that whether it's happening digitally or face to face, I mean, my preference is always face to face. There's more nuance, sense of the energetic. That said, I think it's just about, go wide and try lots of different things. And then when you find the thing that, speaks to you, then go deep into that thing. I had that like in martial arts. Like I've studied a couple of different martial arts, and I'm a fourth dan black belt now in Aikido. So it's a Japanese martial art, and there's a those practices as well. But often when people come to a class, I usually say to them, look, you're going to be trying to coordinate your body and mind, and they're going to be going in two different directions for quite some time. And so I always say to people, suspend judgment on yourself and just be in the experience and let it start to land in your body, and you'll start to see that these things start to connect more and more. And then there's and harmony that starts to arise through the practice. So I think people can be a little bit like a butterfly, and they can try this place and that place and then the other and never really go deep. So at first you need to, of course, sample. It's a little bit like going to a buffet at a hotel, where you can sample all the different things, and then you go, oh, I'll go back for that and we'll get a second plate of that one. I like that one the best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that, with people that we meet or
Mm-hmm.
different teachers or teachings, we'll have some sort of connecting or melting of minds. And when we have that synergy or that connection, I think that's a signal for us to go, okay, well, is there something here? My Buddhist teacher often said, there's 3 different ways to experience the world. There's this idea of like, we have an instant attraction or connection,
Mm-hmm.
a bit like falling in love. And then we have the opposite, where we have the extreme of like feeling repulsion or feeling aversion to someone or a
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Right.
And then the third is neutrality. It's neither, we don't feel pushed away, we don't feel pushed towards, it's neutral. And, he always said like the opportunity for learning is what completely repulses us, and the opportunity is for what completely engages us. So it's in those two extremes where the learnings are. So this idea of wanting to run away or get away from difficulty or obstacle in our life is actually an opportunity for great teaching and learning.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Did you feel that when you were going through these types of practices that, there was some resistance because it's uncomfortable?
Yeah, look, I think sometimes going through, some of the, extensive meditation work I did was physically uncomfortable, and there's resistance in the mind. And then there's that difficulty. And then there's the ability of just like becoming at peace or acceptance of the challenge. So like, it's like, oh my God, my knees are hurting so bad or whatever it is, or I've been sitting for like, these really long sessions, and, the mind is doing its thing. And then you go like, my mind is going on a bit of a journey here, and all my body is responding. Yeah. So little story about that too. Like one of my teachers, he was in his sort of late 70s, and he actually had a stroke
Mm-hmm.
in the class with his
Oh,
students.
wow. Mm-hmm.
And everyone was like, oh, Rinpoche, we have to help you. And he said, everyone calm down. My body is having a stroke, not my mind. And so, he got the help he needed and he was fine. But it's just a great example of like, seeing the, whatever might be considered a super challenging situation, actually an opportunity to reframe it, to see it in a new light. And another experience on a flight on a very small plane going through a storm.
Yeah.
And it was a very turbulent flight, and everyone was getting motion
Yeah.
sickness and vomiting, and it was just awful,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And then they're going to the teacher saying, "Oh, are you okay?" And he's just there laughing, going, "Oh, it's so great. It's like being on a ferry, like being on a roller coaster ride." It's like he just saw it as like, what a bonus, I get to experience this. So a lot of this speaks to this idea of like the highest view. You can consciously choose to take any situation and see it from a high standpoint and go like, I can choose to see the situation as a challenge or an obstacle, or I can go like embrace it and go like, wow, this is actually, opportunity here. So yeah, in my own practices, I'd come up against those different obstacles, and then it was an opportunity to go, okay, well, I have something to learn here. There's an opportunity. I'm gaining a lot of patience, or I'm gaining a lot of understanding that there are other people that have different views. And so like with this idea of being a critical thinker, we can take a look at a situation and say, okay, well, I may have my position or my viewpoint, and this person might have a complete opposite. How interesting. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
where do I find that part in myself?
Did the practice help you to become better at that? I mean, all of us can relate to maybe being at the whims of maybe our thoughts or emotions when something happens, but did it make it easier for you to choose how to deal with the obstacle?
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those opportunities that it's called a practice because it is a practice, right? So you get to do it many times, and you get hopefully better as you develop. So if you could say, do I not have times where I get disturbed or agitated? It's like, yeah, of course I do. It's still there, but it's about catching yourself sooner. So there can be a realization like, oh, I'm getting worked up about this. Like, how interesting. Yeah. So it's this idea that with meditation practice and mindfulness, you have this idea of noticing when the mind is getting hooked on a particular thought or a pattern or whatever it is. And it's almost like a scientist looking, through a microscope going, oh, look at all these interesting parts, these different creatures running around in my mind. Yeah. And you go like, oh, that's really interesting, as opposed to going like, I am my feelings, I am those thoughts. I identify so strongly with disturbing emotion, whatever it is. And
Mm-hmm.
realizing that really it's completely empty, and it's in many ways meaningless. Yeah, it's only has meaning because of the meaning that we attribute to that particular thing. So yeah, it's quite different. Yeah.
So maybe we could, I'd like to do at some point during this episode to go through an experiential practice where you can just kind of take the listener, starting to notice their thoughts and how they could be thinking about it and
Yeah, sure.
reframing it. So maybe let's just do that now. That'd be very helpful. Let's take our listeners through it.
Yeah. So I guess of course, if someone's listening to this driving, probably don't do this, right?
Exactly. Yes.
But yeah, if you're somewhere safe, I'd say, the opportunity then is to, feel your body and the sensation of the body sitting or standing or whatever it is, wherever you are. And then have an awareness of dropping your awareness down through your body, down through your legs, have an awareness to the feet, and then taking your awareness down into the earth. So we may not be on the earth itself, but we can imagine that we are, and that the consciousness goes down to the earth. So we just feel like everything dropping down into connecting to the earth and grounding, and then drawing that awareness of this feeling of groundedness and the earth coming up through the body, and then coming into the middle of the chest around the heart center, and then feeling that idea of ourselves in our heart. And then we have that feeling of cultivating this feeling of love, compassion, or gratitude. And that could be linked to having just a moment of thinking, okay, what brings me joy? It can also be that we just simply smile in this moment and we think of, something that we're grateful for, and the energy of the smile in the heart. Yeah. So when that's there, then we can extend that experience of joy or love out to our environment. So we can think about the people in our lives that are supportive and kind, and the people that then kind of neutral, that just different acquaintances, people come and go. And then that extends out to the rest of the world. So we can think of the people that are perhaps challenges in our life, and we wish them a lot of joy and happiness, and then out to the greater world. So this is just this idea. Yeah. First we collect ourselves, we ground ourselves, we come back to the heart, we have this experience of compassion, kindness, generosity, and we extend it out to our world. And it's just a simple practice. Yeah. I mean, there's many others, of course, but it's just this idea that often we're outside of ourselves and we need to bring ourselves back to our awareness, ground ourselves, and then extend from place of compassion and love out to the world. So it's just a very simple practice there. And,
Let's say if somebody starts to notice that they're thinking about, like, some thought is coming of some problem, what should they ask themselves, or what should they notice about that?
Yeah. So a lot of the training I had is just the idea of naming the thing. And so then go like, oh, here is agitation, or here is, my mind is thinking about so and so. And a little bit like one practice we used to do is you would imagine it like a bubble. If you blow, through a toy or whatever, and you make bubbles. And so the thought is a bubble, and then you just let it rise off and pop and goes, and then you're back to where you are. And, connecting to the breath can often be the vehicle. So yeah, so then it's just like naming, let it disappear, come back to the breath, and then that back to awareness itself.
Some people think about it that meditation is getting rid of, like, having a blank mind, but really it's about just being aware of whatever is happening. You could either be aware internally or even externally. Do you have any thoughts about the value of either one of those type of practices? I mean, following the breath or being aware of outside sounds or things like that.
Yeah, well, that's it. So yeah, you can focus, on some sort of internal practice, or you can extend externally to the outer things. So maybe it's, noticing the sounds, noticing the breath, being aware of what's arising. A lot of the practices in like Tibetan Buddhism, in the Tantra traditions there, or Vajrayana, they talk about this idea of, giving the mind something useful to do, and the body. So they have like a mala. So you're reciting a mantra, a sound, Your hand is moving across the mala beads to count, the repetitions, which is it's not like an end goal. It can just continue as on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And, certain physical postures are supportive of the mind settling.
Which physical postures would you recommend for people to sit in or be in?
Well, again, it really depends on everyone's physicality and what they're capable of. So I think it's, some people have romantic ideas that you have to be sitting in a full lotus position and,
Right.
this, intense yoga positions and so forth. And really, it's just about, I think, sitting comfortably in a chair with your feet on the ground and your spine fairly upright is really helpful.
Right.
And if you notice that you're feeling a bit dull, it's good to actually have the room a bit cooler because it'll wake you up a bit. Generally, the room being a bit cooler is helpful. And then if you're feeling a bit dull, then to raise your head up a bit more. Yeah, as in not back, but like more upright. And this will help settle your mind a bit better. Yeah. So
What about if people feel sleepy or actually fall, did they stop or is that considered a fault or?
No. I mean, look, it happens. That's why I say generally sitting up. If you lay down to meditate, you're probably going to fall asleep, So I'd say it's better to sit upright because, again, the body's like you see people on long flights on planes, when they're sinking all over the place. So it's hard to fall asleep sitting upright. Yeah. And to notice the mind. So, and I would say it's great for people to start small, so often it's a bit like going to the gym and going, I did a 1 hour workout, once a month. It's like, no, it's the daily practice. It's accumulated over time and consistency over time. So, which is a shame, because we all want the instant gratification, but it's like,
what do you think about people like micro moments of increased awareness rather, people are very busy that, sometimes they can't find 10 minutes to sit down, not able to do it. But what do you think, have you engaged in the practice of trying to just be more mindful in the small movements?
Yeah. So it's just like, it's about how we practice in the moment. Every moment's this opportunity to choose generosity or kindness. You're on the highway, someone cuts you off, and instead of flipping them the bird and yelling at them, you go like, oh, wow, they must be in a real hurry. I hope they get where they need to go quickly, in a safe way. Or if we meet with someone and, they're quite disturbed, then we could think, oh, they must be going through a lot of difficulty right now, so you wish them kindness.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it's already a high bar for a lot of us to just be able to respond that quickly. So I think the mindfulness hopefully gives them a little bit of space where there's a little time to make before the reaction happens, I suspect.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, again, it's like building a muscle. It takes time, right? So, having that spaciousness in the mind comes from doing the practice. So the whole idea is that we're not separate from the one that's doing the practice. And, if we're doing a meditation practice, I'm this person, and then I become this other person when I get off the cushion, right? And when I get up from my practice. The idea is that we're like this all the time. It becomes inseparable. So outer life, inner life becomes the same. And that just comes through practice, right? So I think there shouldn't be this separation between the person we wish to become, our aspiration. It's happening in every moment. So when you notice like, oh, I'm getting upset or I'm getting caught up or I'm getting, tired or whatever it is, just, looking at it from that perspective of like, okay, my mind is doing this thing. And go, oh, that's interesting. So what would be a good antidote? Like, what would be a good opportunity? Then it's going, okay, so now I can stop, pause, breathe. Yeah, take a moment if you need a moment and then go, okay, well, what would be a more, beneficial way to show up in this moment? And how can I be of service? So like for me, like one of my aspirations or prayers you could say is this idea of like, well, how can I be of most service? How can I add value in this situation? What would be most supportive of others? So this idea that having an orientation and moving from what's in it for me to more like how can I be of contribution and be of service to others. We've always got something we can do then that's useful. Yeah. So my teacher used to say, if you think about your own problems, you've always got problems. And if you think about how you can be of contribution to others, you've always had something useful to do. You put your mind to work towards the thing that's beneficial, that can be of service. And out of that, if we do the good thing, we see the result, we see that the other's enriched in some way, we go, okay, well, I've done something good here. Yeah. And then we get to experience that sympathetic joy, seeing the joy that comes from seeing the other do the thing. But it could be something really small. Like you could be sitting on a park bench and there's an old lady trying to get up on the bus. And then getting up there and she gets on the bus and she sits down and you think, oh, okay, she did it, So this is just a simple thing of like saying, oh, there's this moment, or like you see a child in the moment playing and you go like, oh, look at that, joy, look at that total in the moment experience of just this pure joy. I've got two sons who are older and I've got my 6-year-old daughter, and we do a little gratefulness practice before we go to bed each night. So when I put her to bed, I say, what was great about today? And then she'll say, and this is because she copies me, she goes, right now. And I'm like, yeah, right now, this moment. And then she'd, rattle off 2 or 3 things that were great about today. And then she said, what did you love, Daddy? And I was like, I love right now. Yeah. And I love that we did this, this, and this, or whatever it is. And so it's like the way that we go into our day is important, but the way we end our day is important. So, I mean, I think that as a practice for anyone to say, okay, what are the things that went well? What can I be grateful for? And then
I find that very useful when you're asking someone else, what did you like about today? I think that's a very good prompt, especially for a parent to ask a child. And it's definitely a really good practice. Do you do any type of, before eating, any other types of like kind of rituals that people can implement gratitude into their life?
Yeah. So usually it's my kids do this as well. Sometimes they don't do it very long because they're very hungry and they're growing. So, or the more, what's the saying? Like, the more delicious the meal looks, the quicker your practice becomes, that's that saying. But yeah, one simple thing that my teacher said, because particularly if you're out in public and you don't want to look too strange, right? So, but we would just have our hands either side of the plate of food or the bowl, or whatever it is. And you'd have this idea of just lifting off the table slightly and putting it back down. So why would you do this, right? So the idea, though, in your mind is that this is an offering to enlightenment, to the highest good, to peace, to equanimity, or whatever it is. So it's like a mandala offering. It's an offering out to enlightenment and say, may everything that I'm about to consume, may it be blessed, may it receive, the highest intention and all those wonderful attributes. So into the food now, which I then eat. So it's this idea of, making an aspiration. And so like having just this moment in time where we can say, okay, may this be for the highest good. Yeah, may there be peace in the world, whatever the aspiration is. So, yeah, there's something I do all the time. Not all the time. Sometimes I forget some, I want to eat the thing. Might be too rushed or whatever. And it's like, oh, I've got to quickly eat my food. I've got to get to the next meeting or whatever it is. And actually, that's the moment where I can take a moment and take my own advice, So again, it's a practice. And I think there's times where we lose sight and we get distracted and we get too busy or we get upset or whatever it is. And it's not to be too hard on ourselves and realize that, this is the human condition where we're always going to fall off the wagon, so to speak. And then we dust ourselves off and we get back and we get on to how we want to be, how we want to show up in the world.
What other aspects? So it sounds like the mindfulness is a really big, important foundation of the mind, like to build the mind to make it, in effect, more stronger, or maybe ability to not react in the moment. What other aspects of mindset do you think are important, like for success, for having a optimal life?
Yeah, well, I think certainly, smiling at obstacles is a good way to go. So if there's a challenge, you can say, oh, there's this terrible thing, or you can sort of give it love and compassion and kindness. And I think also, some of the idea of our self-talk, our inner dialogue is super important. Yeah. So often people are in that state of, disapproving of themselves or judging themselves. Yeah. We often think, oh, the others are thinking about us in a bad way, but usually we're our biggest critic, right? So having an awareness about self-talk is really important.
And how would you know that? While you're in the mindfulness, you're seeing what type of thoughts are coming, what type of self-talk is happening?
Yeah, well, it's like, oh, I'm stupid or whatever it is. Yeah. Oh, that was dumb of me. And so like, are you that? That's the question. So like in meditation practice and you're sitting there and you're off on something and you've completely lost your practice, right? Because you're off on some train of thought and you go, oh, I was here. Yeah. It's like I'm in a dream and I wake up. Oh, I was off somewhere and I bring myself back. So it's like that in outer life as well. So there's a situation where there's a challenge and then we're sort of chastising ourselves internally, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or I should have done this. Like should is an interesting word itself. So there's a lot caught up with language and what we can say that's supportive. So, if I say I should do this, I should do that. It's like, well, you either do it or you don't do it. Yeah. Or the word try is a great example. Oh yeah, I'll try to be there. And like whoever said, I'll try to make it to the party, did they show up? Probably not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Yoda, right? There is no try, there's do or do not.
Right.
And we have that in our workplace. We have a picture of Yoda and that saying, because you commit to do the thing or you don't do the thing. And there's no judgment. You either do it or you do not. There's no in between. There's no try, So I think it's important to say, rather than, I try to do the thing, I say, I commit to, or I'll aim to do the thing, or I'll endeavor to do that thing. Yeah. And then work through that. And there's also this idea of like, I have to go to the gym, or I have to pick up my kids from school, or I have to, the have to. But if we change it to get to, I get to pick up my kids from school. I get to do meditation practice. Yeah. I get to take the bins out and they get collected and I don't have rubbish in the house. How wonderful, like whatever it is.
So reframing is a really interesting way of reframing the type of words one uses. Language can have an impact on how we think about it.
Absolutely.
And
so
our happiness.
Yeah, and it's up to us in every moment to turn that situation around. And, like having this idea that like, what if everything that happens to me is a gift? Like how profound, yeah? Like, this challenge or this, what a tremendous gift. There's a cute little story too about this Buddhist teacher, and he had an attendant, and his attendant was completely useless. He'd fall during the practices. He would forget things. He was always stumbling and breaking things, and all the people around the teacher were like so disturbed, like, "Oh, your attendant! Oh, he's so." He's forgetful. Look, he's falling asleep during the practice. He's wandering in his mind somewhere else. He's not being attentive to you. And then the teacher says, no, 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 he's absolutely wonderful. I need him so much.
Oh, really?
And they're like, why? Why do you need this terrible person as your attendant?
Right.
He goes, I need him because he's teaching me how to be patient. Like what a gift, I need him. It's just like, wow, okay. It's the idea that everything is a gift, yeah?
Yeah,
That can be a great question, yeah? What if everything is a gift? What if this painful situation is actually a gift in the sky? Yeah.
That's a very powerful way of looking at it. So there's probably a lot of people listening to this who have very little exposure to this way of thinking, the exposure to Eastern traditions, mindfulness, meditation. And they might be thinking, you know what, like I'm from a Christian faith background, and how compatible are these things? Can they be compatible with my existing faith? And I would love if you could chat about that. And, I'm not sure what your background was growing up, but I'd love if you could kind of talk about that to the listeners, because I think that'll help them.
Yeah. I mean, I was raised as a Christian background, but I got exposed to a lot of Eastern traditions as I was growing up. And then, so I think there's this idea in Christianity of, having, kindness and compassion. And if we look at Buddhism as a parallel, it's really the same structures are there. Yeah. I think the distinction of, if someone has the idea of the outer God, and that something that there's an aspiration towards, from a Buddhist perspective, we'd probably say that, we are already that aspiration and we just get to share it and experience it. So I think there's a lot of parallels, definitely like drawing on direct experience in life. So if we are in life and we are consciously practicing to be aware of whatever's happening in the situation and having that aspiration towards love and kindness, then that's going to ripple out into our lives, and it's going to touch other people's lives as well. So I think there's definitely parallels. The whole idea of people doing a particular faith practice or whatever it is, it's wrapped up in something that's of benefit, right? So whether it's akin to a particular belief system or practices or whatever it is, at the root of almost every tradition, or whether it's inner or outer, or whether it's Eastern or Western traditions, there's always this aspiration of love and kindness.
So it's compatible. What I'm trying to say is that it's completely one doesn't feel like they have to let go of whatever they have and to take up a practice, and one doesn't have to necessarily believe in like a particular higher power.
No, I think it's up to the individual, right? So one can see that there's something outside of themselves, and one can see that's part is it, yeah, a part of their totality as well.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
like in what's the kingdom of God is within you, right? That
mhm, mhm,
from the Bible, and that's the in Buddhism that say your Buddha nature or the mind of enlightenment arises within you. It's the same concept, right? It's the
mhm,
idea that the possibility is present in every moment, and we just should cherish and celebrate that. Yeah.
mhm. At our at your in your life now, I don't even know how old you are, but how would you say that your lifetime of practice has brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely informed it, and still a work in progress. And I think that's that idea that there is no destination. So I do this thing, and then I'll get that thing, and then I'll be happy. It's like no, you do the thing, and you realize that is the journey, and there is no destination. It's this unachievable goal, and how
Mhm,
wonderful. Yeah, like
mhm,
it's not like A to B, and then I'm done. It's yeah. So I think it's this whole idea that people think, oh, when I get that promotion, or when I've paid off my house, or when I've earning this much money, or when I've got that perfect partner, or when I've had children, or like whatever it is, yeah, or when the children leave home, it's this idea that there's always going to be the one day when, and the
mhm,
one day is now. It's today, So
mhm,
what a miracle that you woke up and you're breathing, and there's a possibility for doing something meaningful. Like what a gift!
mhm. Here's
Like,
what a gift, yeah, to be alive, yeah. So, sometimes, people might be just running on automatic, I call it, like, just going through life, like, never thinking about these types of things, but, most people operate with this there's, like, an underlying sense of suffering, or what do you wanna call it, dissatisfaction with life, and nagging, like, a small little underlying sense. And so, with this practice, does that actually get resolved?
what I'd say is that the ability to catch yourself gets probably quicker through practice. It's not that it
Mhm,
doesn't happen. This reminds me of something that came from the founder of Aikido for martial arts training, and the O-sensei, as he was called, was this master martial
mhm,
artist, and his students was like, "Oh, sensei, how is it that you never lose your balance? You
right.
always do everything so perfectly." And he goes, "No, no, I'm constantly losing my balance. I'm just getting myself on track so quickly you don't notice." And so this is a good example, right? We're constantly losing it. We're constantly going out of self-awareness. We're constantly in judgment or belittling ourselves or whatever it is. And then we have that, oh, hang on, no, I need to do this instead. Yeah. So I choose to do
Mhm,
this thing.
mhm,
But that's it. It's not like you don't have the thing, or you don't have agitation, or you don't suffer. But your ability to work with what's right in front of you is your recovery time's quicker, I would
mhm.
say. Yeah, your
Yeah.
ability to have a different view, you know. Like I remember I was traveling with my Buddhist teacher, and we went to a person's house, and we had this meal, which was not amazing, but not bad, right? And yeah, and then the teacher was like, "Oh, this is exactly what I needed. Oh, this is like the best meal I've ever had in my life," And he was just so overjoyed. And we're like going, well, it's not that great actually, but okay. And then the next day we went to the next house, and pure coincidence, the person had produced the same meal again. And we're like, oh, we're having the same food again. This is the students, right? And he's like, "Oh, this is the best meal. This is the perfect. This is exactly what I needed." And
Mhm,
so we're just like going, "Okay, okay." Now we're starting to see, he's just saying, "Hey, every moment, every meal, every whatever it is, how perfect." Yeah. So
mhm.
I just
Yeah,
thought it's great teaching. It's what it reminded
that's a
me of.
great teaching. I want to just tell a little story about, just something I've noticed about how hard it is to remain, how the mind can wander so, yeah, easily. And this one episode brought it to my attention. So in our area, they've brought up on one of the small streets these speed cameras. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have those in Australia, but we normally don't have them. But they started to put them up, and if you go anything over 40 kilometers, you're going to get a ticket.
yeah,
So it's quite slow. And this is a
yeah,
very short street, but we're talking maybe it's only a 20-second little area that I drive every morning. And
yeah, yeah.
regularly I'd be thinking, okay, I'm going down the street, I'm going to slow down. And, within maybe 2 seconds, I might be off thinking about something and
Yeah.
I start speeding up again. But it's becoming better and better. Like I train myself to like now try to be aware the whole 20 seconds, but it's really quite interesting how easily we're off in some other world.
Yeah. So I'd be saying like, wow, have this incredible opportunity for a
Yeah.
20-second meditation practice every day. And it's
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying it. I've actually enjoying going down the street now because I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm just being okay with this. I'm okay with this speed. I'm not trying to get in. I'm not trying to rush anywhere. I'm just see if I can keep it going.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if you get a letter in the mail that you have to pay $90, then it's a lesson. Like every time it's a lesson, every time you make a mistake.
Yeah. So then you go, okay, well, I got the fine. There's a great, I'm paying my taxes, right? I'm paying
Yeah,
this is my lack of awareness contribution opportunity. You
exactly.
know what I mean? It's like, oh, great. I get to be generous and contribute. How lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's this idea that, we always have the richness is already always there. It was always there. It's not something we have to obtain. It's always present with us. There's a nice little parable like that too. I'll just share if you like. And it's a story of this farmer. He was trying to plow his field and he kept on finding these stones and he's always grabbing these stones and throwing them out of the field because he's trying to plant his crops, right?
Yeah.
And then one day a traveler comes through past his farm and says, "Oh, why are you toiling in the soil here to get this crop? There's these fields,
Gold.
and well, they're diamonds. There's a
Oh,
diamond.
diamonds. Okay.
Go there, and you can go get all your riches, And he goes, and life would be so easy for you. So and he goes, "Yeah, I'm sick of toiling in this field and all these stones." And he goes, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go off and find my fortune." And he takes one of the stones, puts it in his pocket because he wants to remind him of his homeland. And he feels like this stone will bring him back to his home eventually. He
Mhm.
goes out, he travels for years, he toils and he doesn't get anything. He comes back, empty handed. And then, he's so upset and so sad. And he pulls out the stone to remind him of his home and he weeps and he cries and the tears fall on the stone. And then the mud from the stone gets washed away by the tears. And it's a huge diamond. And he'd had it his whole time. And all those stones in his field were all diamonds. Yeah. So
Right.
it's this story of like our possibility, our richness is always with us. And it's not like we have to go to get it. I don't have to go and sit on the mountain to become aware. I don't have to go to the special temple or the church, or I don't have to go to the place to get the thing. It's already here. Yeah. It's about stopping, bringing awareness, being present, generating,
Mhm.
faking gratitude, even if you have
Mhm.
to,
Mhm.
right? And then it
Yeah.
gets you into the state. So, yeah, it's already
Sometimes I think about it that when people are traveling to get away on vacation, it's just I mean, everything is really actually available if they want right
yeah,
at home.
yeah.
Apart, I mean, maybe the beach isn't there, but I mean, you basically have all the peace you want. We have the ability to have it even when we're at home.
Yeah, we do, yeah, like, and I mean, everyone has different, relative, comfort in the West, compared to other people, and, like, the thing that we aspire, that we want, or the part of us that's grasping towards the attainment of the thing, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's the relationship or the promotion or the whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. All of that, it's already here,
Mhm.
we don't have to go anywhere. So
No, this
everything's a gift, yeah? Everything's an opportunity,
Mhm.
and how wonderful. And the challenge I'm having now, whatever it is, it will change, And they often say, like, impermanence is a good thing to contemplate because when things are going really well, for sure they will change. And when things are going bad, for sure they will change. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter whether we're in a state, if we're in a chapter of our lives that challenge, then we get to learn patience. And if we're in a chapter of our life of good fortune and joy, then we get to remember impermanence because it will change. Yeah.
Great.
So,
Beautiful. Well
yeah.
said.
And so not to take it too personal, because this is happening to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. This was really enlightening. I hope our viewers really enjoyed it. Where could they learn more about you and your work and your teachings, where could they go for that? I'll put them in the show notes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So lawrenceellyard.com is my author website. Some of my books on there as well. And then my other business, which is a governing body for the whole wellness industry. That's myiict.com. And so those two sites, one is more for people who are natural therapists or wellness practitioners. They can get affiliation, access to insurance and things like that for their practice. So we really... Our mission is to help anybody who is helping people to become accredited and recognized and have the credibility to support them to do their work better, so they can be a success in their practice. And then there's my site for myself, which is, any sort of speaking and so forth that I do. And that's another resource there. And written, several books as well. So they're all available on the website as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lawrence.
Yeah, well, great. Well, thank you. I think if just one thing drops, for the audience, then that's a gift. Yeah. So then I've done my job. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of nuggets there. I hope everyone can take some time and digest it. But thank you again. And let's hope we can meet again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's talk with Lawrence Ellyard. Lots of life lessons and ways of how to implement mindfulness into your practice. I hope you got what I got out of it. And it's going to leave me thinking about some of the things we spoke about for some time. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, share with your friends and family, because that gets the word out and helps us on the algorithm. Well,